Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Sun Journal Sports Talk here at the Sun Media Group. I'm Justin Pelletier, joined by Randy Whitehouse and Kalle Oakes. Hoping to provide you a little bit of insight into the Western Class D basketball tournament here coming up this week.
A lot of insight.
We are
the Class D authority.
We are the Class D authority, apparently. It's tempting to start at the top in Western D with Forest Hills, but let's not. Let's start with defending champions, because defending champions tend to be, even though they're not necessarily ranked number one, defending champions tend to offer more than sometimes necessarily their seeding in tournaments like this. And that where we start with Richmond.
It's Richmond, new coach with Phil Hoodlett after Lancaster stepped down at the end of last year. A lot of new faces on the court as well, but defense is the thing that struck me, and the kid that stood out from that team last year that's back is Eric Murin. He's a threat at both ends of the floor. Certainly with the experience they have, some of those guys sat on the bench through that ride the last couple of years, but they're familiar with that building and familiar with what it takes to win that tournament.
Richmond's the favorite as far as I'm concerned. They handed Forest Hills their only loss, and I think it was a pretty convincing one. Their only losses, Richmond's only losses, came to Hyde, a Class C team, and Vinyl Haven, which is a pretty solid team in the bracket. Like Kalle said, they have a lot of new faces, but they have that pedigree. They know what it takes to win there. Certainly Forest Hills, the number one seed, got a taste of success last year, finally, after all these years. But and you know, they're certainly a legitimate number one seed, but I think you got to consider Richmond the favorite.
And another wild card, because we talk about wild card teams that don't necessarily play a full schedule, or they play different teams during their schedule, is Elon School out of Poland.
The Bucks!
The Buccaneers out of Elon, because they come in as a 3 seed, so they would match up against Richmond in a semifinal. What kind of problems will they pose to a team like Richmond?
I think in a quarterfinal round of very interesting matchups, perhaps the most interesting is Elon and Greenville, because we just don't know. We have no idea what either team's going to, you know, as far as matchups. They don't see a lot of the same opponents, I'm sure. Elon's kind of like Hyde in Class C. They play a lot of teams that the other Class D tournament teams don't play. Their schedule might not be as rugged, not coming out of the East-West Conference. But Peter Ero's done a great job with that team over the years. They've won some games. They've gotten to at least one regional final. You never know what you're going to get. Greenville last year gave Valley a tough time, so that's an interesting matchup. But if they can get to a semifinal game with Richmond, could be fun.
Speaking of teams you never know what you're going to get, there's Averill.
Yeah, it's been a few years. It's been a few years since Gary Doodle got the Averill Beavers attorney.
But they've pulled off a few minor upsets this season.
Yeah, they took Elon to overtime, I believe, in at least one of their matchups. Perhaps the outstanding player of the tournament going in is Cody Gilbo from Forest Hills. He's had some 40-point games this year. He's a 1,000-point scorer. I think he had a game where he had like 40 points and 23 rebounds or something. Some Thomas Knight-like numbers from up there in Jackman. Forest Hills 17-1. Is that the record? Yep. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with 17-1. They're going to be. There's a chance to get to the final. I don't think they've been to a regional final since 1992. So,
there was a time in Western Class D where you couldn't do anything but mention Valley. What's going on up there?
It's just a time of reloading. The school's gotten smaller. It's obviously a new coach. Dwight Littlefield has retired, and Wade Morrill's taken over. The student enrollment's dropped from about 130 back in that heyday to about 80 or 90 right now. The economy strikes that community as much as it has a lot of the small towns in Maine. So I think it's just a time of things are different up there right now. The culture is not the same as it was in the 90s, and the thing that people don't understand is that just such great individual talent that came out of that group. When you see what those players not only did in high school, but went on to college and did. When you talk about Nick Pilot going to Plymouth State and becoming an All-American, you're talking about the Hartwell brothers played in college, Brian Andre played Division I, Chris Willer had a great career. There was just so much talent that went through the halls of that school, and finally the faucets dried up a little bit.
All the talent's on the X chromosome now.
Yeah, I think yes. Is it X, Y?
Why?
Something
I don't
like
know.
that.
It's been a long time since advanced biology.
I thought, it's biology.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So, Randy,
Yeah.
who's coming out of here?
I'm going with Richmond. They seem to have more depth, a little more experience on that floor, and I mean they've beaten Forest Hills before. I just think they're the best team.
I'm going to go with Monmouth Academy class of 1989, Anthony Amaro, coach of the Forest Hills Tigers. I think the title's going to Jackman. Up Route 201.
Don't get upset in the first round by Buckfield.
Ooh,
I want to do a shout out for Buckfield.
Ooh, Bucks, go Bucks.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate the time. For Kalle Oakes and Randy Whitehouse, I'm Justin Pelletier for Sun Journal Sports Talk here at the Sun Media Group. Have a good one.